The American Homebrewers Association has a special holiday promotion running now through December. Buy a 1-year prepaid membership gift card for $43 and choose a free gift to go along with it. You can buy the gift card for a fellow brewer or for yourself. The free gift options are Brewing Local by Stan Hieronymus, For the Love of Hops by Stan Hieronymus, and a stainless steel tumbler that doubles as a koozie. Visit homebrewersassociation.org to order. homebrewersassociation.org. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, November 30th, 2017. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Grant Chandler from Lost 40 in Little Rock shares some limited-release beers aged in barrels, some with local yeast that Grant harvested and cultured himself. He'll give us some tips on how Lost 40 brewed these delicious beers. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows, our DVDs, brewers' logbooks, and other Basic Brewing gear. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Basic Brewing, and find our show page on Facebook. We have a cool Basic Brewing app on iTunes and Amazon.com, and we're found all over the place where fine podcasts are served up. If you'll do us a favor of rating us on iTunes and maybe leaving a nice comment, that'll help new listeners find us, apparently. And if you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing. Steve and I brewed a Party Guile brew on Monday, and I'm planning to put the sort of unedited footage of our brewing session out to financial subscribers who contribute $5 a month on Patreon by the end of the week, and also the sort of grandfathered in PayPal subscribers who've been with us for so long. The rest of you will see it as a part of a Basic Brewing video episode when the beers are finished and ready to sample, but I thought it'd be fun to let those who are contributing see a bit of behind-the-scenes stuff beforehand. As often happens with the Party Guile brews, things were a little unpredictable, and I almost had a sort of brewing disaster on my hands because I forgot to put my specialty malts in the mash for the small beer, for the second runnings. However, we figured out a way to make it work. It was a beautiful day weather-wise, and Steve and I had a lot of fun, and I think the beers will turn out very well indeed. Speaking of disasters, this year's annual disaster show is rapidly approaching. I already have some brewing disaster stories from listeners on file, but we need more. If you can email your disaster story to james@basicbrewing.com by December 15th, that would be awesome. And I'm working on prizes, as usual, to give out to our favorite stories. Steve and I brewed our Party Guile beers using our electric brewing systems from our friends and sponsors Desiree and Dave from High Gravity in Tulsa. The systems performed flawlessly, of course, and it was great to spend a spring-like day brewing on the patio without the constant roar of propane. Through the end of December, High Gravity is offering a bundling special on gift certificates. If you buy a $50 gift certificate, you'll get a second $5 one free. If you buy a $100 gift certificate, you'll get a $10 one for free. And if you buy a $1,000 gift certificate, you'll get a $100 gift certificate bundled with it for free. So that's through the end of December. Check out highgravitybrew.com for details. I think Santa can fit electric brewing gear in his sleigh. Just saying. Give Santa a break and tell Santa about the bundling of the gift certificates at highgravitybrew.com. And we greatly appreciate Desiree and Dave for their support. Now, this show may run a little long because we had a great conversation with Grant of Lost 40, and I didn't want to cut it short. There was too much good stuff. Also, we add a new voice to the show this week, Steve's son, Chase Holloman. Grant Chandler, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thank you very much, James.
Here we're in the back of Steve's brew shop with Steve Wilkes. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, James. It's a pleasure to be in my own store with you.
The commute was not so much.
Yeah, it was a quick commute.
Who have we got with us here? We have a newcomer.
That's right. It's my son, Chase. He's helps me out here at the store a couple days a week. And a burgeoning brewer and mead maker and cider maker. He's got a cider going right now that I'm very excited about. So welcome, Chase.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, we had your lemon ginger mead or sizer on one of the video podcasts, and it was very delicious. I don't know if I've told you in person, but I told you on the show. So if you watched it, you've heard. But Grant, we've got you here, and we've got some really cool looking beers here in front of us. What are we here to talk about? You're from Lost 40 down in Little Rock, but tell us what you do there, and what are these beers all about?
So I guess my official title, my unofficial official title is quality manager and barrel herder, but overall I think I'm just generally special projects coordinator. So I spend a lot of my time in our lab just running routine quality checks. That probably takes up 50 to 75% of my time, and the rest of it is split between managing just our routine production cellar, all of our clean beers. But what really excites me is making the beers that we have in front of us, which come from our mixed culture wood cellar. So it's very, a fraction of our Lost 40s production, but it's where we really get to I think of that area of the brewery as my sandbox. Kind of get to play around and experiment with fermentation, in a word. I mean, just different types of fermentation, different kind of cultures, different vessels for making these beers, different blends. And so these beers are really kind of what it's all about for me. Small part of my time there, small part of our production, but it's very much everything else that I do is so that I can experiment with these things and make these things, which are definitely gaining traction. We're making more releases all the time, and that part of the brewery is growing fast, probably too fast, because we're strapped for, every square inch of that place has something sitting in it. And we're just, trying to add more barrels constantly to this program. It's very exciting.
Yeah, we are familiar with Lost 40 because we get your beers distributed up here in cans, and you were not generally known for being, a wild beer brewery. It's a production brewery. Well, tell us a background. Who is Lost 40?
Lost 40 is a brewery that started production in very late 2014. I joined the production team in summer of 2015, so a little more than half a year into production. In our first full year, we made around 4,000 barrels. Last year we made 10,000, so pretty significant increase. And this year we hope to do 14. And again, that's 99.9% clean beer. Our Bock alone is our our flagship, and this year we got 3 240 barrel tanks outside of the brewery because can't fit them inside, and they're pretty much just dedicated to Bock, just nonstop. And even then, we still make batches of Bock inside as well. So Bock is huge. It's well over half of our production, and in addition to the Bock, we are you said a second ago we're not really known for being a wild brewery. Moreover, we're largely known for being a lager brewery, which is kind of like the other end of the spectrum from wild beers, and it's not even that popular of a model in craft brewing in general. Ales are the foundation of craft brewing in America, but Bock is like I said, our biggest seller. But other big brands of ours are our Vienna Lager, which just won silver at GABF this year, which is really exciting for us. And we've always had our Pilsner around. Our Baltic Porter is a fan favorite, and our fall seasonal Oktoberfest. Those are so we make a lot of lagers in general. Very clean cut, Reinheitsgebot driven beers. They're good, well made, quality. My background has always been in the cellar. That's where my heart lives, and definitely focus very much on fermentation and learning how to ferment a Pilsner well is goes a long way for just understanding fermentation in general, how to make good, clean beer, and that's the foundation that I kind of build upon for more experimental, kind of like boundary pushing. That's what I tell myself, at least. Things that I do at home as well as in the wood cellar or the funky cellar. Well, I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh yeah, you did. So let's get funky. We've got 5 beers here in front of us with labels and one without. So what? And maybe Steve, you can be our server here, so Grant can talk. That's a big customized opener there. So Grant, what is the first beer that we're going to be sampling?
So this is pretty much by the book, if there is a book for it. Traditional mixed culture saison. This is a beer that we fermented with a traditional saison yeast and stainless. Racked it over to fresh white wine barrels. These are actually 2 of the first 8 barrels that we filled for this program in September of last year. And racked it into oak, inoculated it with a couple strains of lab cultured Brettanomyces, aged it for a season, bottled it in March, and it's been aging in the bottle ever since. I don't think of this as the most experimental sort of beer. It is kind of like by the book as far as mixed culture barrel aged saisons go. But I think it's very good. I think we did a very good job of it, and it really kind of like set the stage for more progressive, more experimental stuff down the line. As I guess we'll discuss as we go through these beers. But this is our first release, and I think it's aged very well. I'm very happy with it.
So yeah, and I probably didn't hear this, but how long has this been in the barrel?
Well, it was in the barrel from September to March, September of 2016 to March of this year. Been in the bottle ever since.
It's delicious. It's funky. It's a bit tart, but yet it's got a real clean finish. It's very quaffable, very drinkable. What do you think?
I think exactly that. The lemony comes through. I'm so struck at how clean it is. It's just like there's just nothing wrong in this beer. And sometimes saisons, I don't know, maybe it's the heat, maybe just how they're fermented, so that they get out of balance ester wise. This one's not. This is really very fine beer.
Chase?
I think it tastes like a good representation of a sour beer. It's got that real crisp taste of a sour, and I like the finish at the back of the throat, the tartness that you said. You get the saison at the front and the tartness at the back.
This is delicious. And the head on this is great.
Yeah.
The Belgian lace.
Yeah. So talk about dissect the recipe. So if we want to do something like this at home, to tell us a bit about the recipe, and then how much do the barrels contribute to the beer?
Oh man, that's a big question. We got 5 beers to work through. It's like that's a whole show right there. So the recipe, I like to make saisons is just a kind of just a general blend of all the different types of pale base malts that you can, specifically Pilsner, wheat, oat, not oat malt. I would use oat malt if I could get it. Flaked oats is all we use. So really, yeah, it's just those 3 grains, highly hopped or moderate to highly hopped with noble hops or low alpha American hops. And then we fermented with DuPont strain, which I don't really do anymore. I prefer to use kind of like wild isolates these days. But like I said, it was just kind of like a starting point, first step. So it was like we're just going to do what we know will work and build from there. So if you don't have much experience brewing saisons, definitely start with a traditional saison yeast for sure. DuPont is a classic one. The French saison yeast is also very popular. So that's the base. Saisons are supposed to be simple. Their character comes from the fermentation, but the recipe is, nothing extravagant. But so fermented clean with a pure culture, and then we put it into fresh white wine barrels. It's tough for home brewers to get access to oak that really, I think, truly resembles proper barrel aging. Using spirals and chips and whatnot. That'll give you good oak flavor, but there's a lot that comes out of barrel aging other than just flavor. And no one is really, I guess, properly agrees or even entirely sure what those things are. The term microoxygenation gets thrown around a lot. It's a popular thing in winemaking. The idea being that the porous nature of oak, the oak vessel, allows very slow ingress of oxygen. And for the most part, making clean beers fermented in stainless, brewers do everything they can to avoid oxygen. But there's something about the combination of barrel aging and oxygen that results in more of something. Who knows exactly what that something is. Something to do with maturation of the culture and flavor over time. But I think it would be foolhardy to say precisely what the long-term result is, and even whatever it is probably different from beer to beer. But in addition, the flavor of the oak is huge. It has, I think, a very refreshing kind of prominent, but you might not notice it at first, character of this beer is the white wine flavor. I think it's very refreshing, very light, but it really kind of adds to the expressive yet subtle character of this beer.
So Steve, you're a wine guy. Are you getting the wine characteristics? As you're sipping, as it's warming up a little bit, and
yeah, it's just light. The oak is not overpowering. It doesn't remind me of almost everybody's oak aged whatever they've made, where you just feel like you're drinking an ashtray. It's not like that at all. It's kind of a green wood flavor, and so that's a white wine kind of thing.
Yeah. If I could add to that, another thing that you get out of barrel aging versus just aging on oak, or aging in oak, is the larger the vessel, the less surface area contact. So there's actually kind of it's very easy to overdo oak when you're putting a few sticks into a 5-gallon carboy, just because the volume to surface area is so much smaller. In general, the idea is if you're fermenting or aging in oak, the larger the vessel, the better the beer, because there is less volume to wood surface contact, but 2, there's also less oxygen ingress for that given volume. And that's a huge thing about home brewing in general, I think, with wood or without. Beer just ages so much faster in a smaller volume. So, if you open up your carboy to put in oak and don't purge it afterwards, that alone is ingressing who knows how much oxygen. And then if you're tasting it, once every other day out of that headspace, every time you're putting oxygen in there. And so that beer is just going to age so much more faster than in a proper wine barrel, even though that proper wine barrel itself is porous by nature. So it's, there's something counterintuitive there. You'd think that with a glass or sealed plastic that you'd have, longer, better shelf life, but it's actually the other way around. So I think that's, to add to the things you get out of proper barrel aging, as opposed to just putting wood in another vessel.
That makes sense to me. Let's why don't we go ahead and open the second one? Like you said, if we spend a whole lot of time on each of these, we can continue the conversation as we're moving through. That's delicious. It is, the wine, to me, the wine and oak character is nice and subtle. Yeah. And it blends well with the kind of funky saison character. It's not like chewing on a table leg or or like you said, an ashtray or something like that.
That's one of the nicest lightest, most quaffable saisons I've ever had. And I'm a big fan of a lot of folks' saisons, which I won't name, but I really like saison. I like the style. And that one's just, boy, you could just pour me pint after pint of that.
And jump in, be aggressive, Chase. If you want to say something, give me a sign.
I would just say that the place where I noticed the most white wine would be actually the aroma. I felt like there's a real nice kind of oaky white wine smell from the aroma that you got. I didn't get it so much in the taste as I did in the nose.
This one's looks a little different from the.
Very much not a saison. So this is actually my favorite of the FOP that we released so far, and it is our winter seasonal milk stout. That's the base beer. So it's just fermented, brewed and fermented like in stainless, just like we do every batch of Forest Queen. But we took some of it, put it into neutral red wine barrels, and I inoculated it with a lab culture of BSI's Brettanomyces lambicus. And the idea there was to create a real cherry stone fruit rich stout. I've found in the past that aging clean stouts in oak alone kind of creates a stone fruit character. Even with just clean stouts, you barrel age it, it really evokes some kind of stone fruit quality. And the Brettanomyces lambicus is known for expressing a kind of like a quintessential cherry pie ester. And one day I was just kind of brainstorming beer ideas, and that just totally clicked. Put a stout in a barrel with some lambicus and just try and make a cherry beer. And it really panned out, I think, really well. This is a single barrel, so there's no blend here. I guess I should have said earlier that the saison that we just had was a blend of two barrels with different cultures in them, and we blended them together. But this is just a single barrel. The barrel tasted so good that we didn't want to really blend it with anything else. And I think it's just like every other beer we have here is a pretty light beer. But this is, the only stout, the only dark beer in the lineup. But it is my favorite because it's really unique. I mean, you can think of like barrel-aged, funky beers. There aren't too many examples of funky stouts out there. I don't know why necessarily, but I was happy with this one despite it not being a popular style, I guess.
I've got some customers that have made some funky stouts.
Not on purpose.
I've made a few funky stouts myself. This one, however, is very light. I mean, it's not, when I think of stouts, I almost always think of something that's like really chewy and like lots and lots of mouthfeel, a really heavy beer. This is not to me, but it's just so refreshing, and the stone fruit definitely comes through. So, I probably wouldn't take a sip of this and go, oh, that's cherry, or oh, that's peach, or whatever, or apricot, but it's definitely got that kind of, it's almost like you've eaten the peach and now you're kind of sucking on the stone, on the pit, and that's the flavor. So,
yeah, that cherry taste really comes through. I didn't notice it at first, but once you said it, I was like, that's the flavor that I was tasting, and it's very interesting because it tastes like a chocolate cherry stout, but it's a sour beer, and I've never tasted something quite like that. It's very nice.
Yeah, if I closed my eyes, I don't think that I would think it was as dark as it is. It doesn't. I get the tartness of that, like you said, the cherry pit or that flavor. The aroma, I got just a tiny bit of, I don't know if it's the wood character, but I got kind of like a La Folie kind of, it kind of tickled some of those receptors in my brain. It's not nearly as sour as La Folie, but it's very drinkable. when you think about milk stouts, you think of big, chewy, sweet beers. Did the Brett have an impact on the mouthfeel?
Yeah, it's definitely thinned out with age in the bottle. When we first released it, it definitely did have more mouthfeel, and I think it was probably a little better at that time when I was younger. So yes, I very much imagine the Brett is continuing to chew down those dextrins. I'm not sure if Lambicus is a strain of Brettanomyces that can metabolize lactose, but just from observing the change in this beer, I venture that it is one of them. I know some can, some can't. I'm not sure which ones are which, but the beer has indeed lightened up in body over time without really the other flavors changing all that much. I wouldn't even say it's even necessarily more dry than it used to be, but it is less chewy for sure.
It's really good.
It's very good. And I also get almond. Do you guys get any almond out of it? There's a nuttiness that. Yeah,
you could talk me into tasting anything. I'm pretty. I'm easily influenced.
You get circus peanuts.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's it.
So this is actually the only beer so far that we've released that we are really excited to try and make again and turn it into a vintage. So far, everything we've done is just kind of a crapshoot, brainstorming ideas, experiments, and that's the first one. I mean, I guess number 2 isn't really so far down the line, but we hope to make a 2017 vintage of that, and this time I very much hope to make one pretty much a replication of number 2 as it is, but also do a rendition aged on sour cherries. So just really driving that flavor even that much more forward. I'm excited to try that this year.
And I guess we should say that these beers are only available at the tasting room, right?
So up until now, yes. But actually, our next release is going to see some minor entry into the distribution across the state. Again, it'll still be a fraction of our production. But our number 6, the one here without the label, is actually will be available statewide. It'll be rare, but available.
So yeah, these are, and the labels are really cool because on the back they give a description of what the base beer is. They give a description of the type of barrel and the aging time, and if any additional ingredients are added to it. So it's kind of really easy to kind of tell what's going on.
Just a fun trivial bit. These labels are actually made of wood. They don't just look like wood; they are wood. That's fun.
Yeah, it's that is cool. Of course, paper is also made out of wood, but
Fair point.
if I want to be a jerk about it, and I do, but yeah, it's like a what would you call it? A veneer or
it's a veneer for sure. It's a little flap. There's a little wooden flap here.
Quit playing with your wooden flap. You'll get a splinter.
Okay.
Yes.
What do we got
Okay,
next?
number 3.
Okay, so this is our spring summer seasonal Hefeweizen. That's the base beer. You might notice a pattern. Pretty much all these beers are just me taking beer or wort from our clean brewery, bringing it into the back wood funk cellar, and playing around with it. So the base beer for all these, except the first one, the number 1, we actually did brew a saison specifically for the first round of barrels. But otherwise, they're pretty much all base beers from the clean cellar. But so this one is our base beer is the Hefeweizen. So this Hefeweizen put into white wine barrels, just like fresh white wine barrels, like number 1, and inoculated it with Brettanomyces and some souring bacteria, Pediococcus, and aged it. Similar to number 1, it's still very simple beer. All the character is in the barrel and in the fermentation profile. But I think it really kind of really transformed that Hefeweizen into something completely different in a good way.
So how would you describe the base beer? Is it very estery forward? Is it lots of bananas and cloves and things like that?
Well, I mean, it is a very expressive beer. We do our best to balance our esters and our phenols. We don't really prefer one to be more prominent than the other, but it is an expressive Hefeweizen. Lots of both of them, I guess, but balanced.
This is the most, to me, the most complex so far. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm really, I don't know that I would have even said this is a wheat beer. I can honestly say that the last two beers are beers I've never tasted before. This beer and the stout, and it's got the aroma for me is nuts. I'm on the nuts today, but it's very
happens when you get older.
Well, that's true.
I was trying to think of the same joke.
Yeah. I hope you got a fiber beer coming because I'm going to need it. But it's almost like, for me, it's almost like sticking my nose in a can of deluxe mixed nuts. It's just got that kind of bready, nutty aroma, but I don't get any banana at all from this.
Yeah. So the quintessential ester in Hefeweizens, isoamyl acetate, which
It's fun to say.
creates that banana flavor, is known to be reduced by Brettanomyces with aging. So that that quintessential Hefeweizen flavor is actually largely removed by aging on Brettanomyces. In addition to the fact that there's a lot of long-chained proteins, and we mash high with our Hefeweizen to leave a fair amount of dextrins to make a soft, sort of creamy beer. But Brett will just over time continue to just eat those chains and break it down into a lighter and lighter beer. So between changing the ester profile and really drying out the base Hefeweizen, I mean, there's, as you said earlier, Steve, there's no beer here that is as transformed during the aging process as I think our Hefeweizen is.
Now it's I get some banana, but it's like a really ripe banana that's ready to go into banana bread. I get.
I can see that.
But the body is more significant than in the milk stout version. This is a more chewy beer.
Well, if the saison I said was crisp, this goes even further. It's I would almost say sharp. I don't know if that's the best word for it, but the initial taste on it is really strong, and then as it kind of sits on your palate, it changes, and it's really nice. It's a really nice beer, and it's like the Hefeweizen amplifies the sour flavor, at least for me. Like what I think a sour beer is, this makes it takes it a step further. It's really nice.
You're definitely not off the mark, because this is the first beer so far that we actually added souring bacteria to. The first two just had Brettanomyces, which can kind of add a little bit of acidity, but Brett by itself typically doesn't ever make sour beer unless it is aged in the presence of a lot of oxygen, and then it'll just turn to vinegar, and no one really wants that. But this is the first beer that we intentionally soured with Pediococcus, so it is the most acidic of the three so far, for sure. And that definitely makes it crisper, as you said, I think.
Wow. Well done. Very good. I'm excited.
And Chase, you used the word sharp, and I definitely agree. I think that is this beer is sharp, but the next beer, number 4, is the same beer, but re-fermented with strawberries, Arkansas strawberries, and this beer, for better or worse, is quite sharp. I mean, that the acidity from the fruit themselves, really boosts that tartness, and it goes to the sharp level for sure.
Strawberry is known to be a very sort of fragile flavor in beers, and I've had some good ones, and then I've had some that where the flavor didn't really. Thank you, sir. Where the flavor didn't really survive. So I'm really interested to see, what this one turns out to be. So how did you treat the strawberries and go through that process? So we took the last beer that we had, right, and then took that and put it on strawberries.
Yeah. So the barrels that we had, we blended them together. All Hefeweizen white wine barrels. We blended them together, bottled half of it, and what was left over we added local Arkansan strawberry pureed in house to it, and re-fermented in a plastic conical tank. The dosage of fruit, I think, being 2 to 3 pounds per gallon, and let it age there for I want to say 2 months or so before transferring off the strawberries and going straight into bottle.
Wow.
Chase, you go first.
I would say from just the initial aroma, it immediately reminded me of like strawberry shortcake. The strawberries, those kind of caramelized glazed strawberries that you put on strawberry shortcake, that's exactly what this smells like to me. But on tasting it, it tastes a lot like the number, 3. It tastes a lot like that, but if once you get the aroma in, you can really add those strawberry notes back in.
Yeah, this beer tastes like strawberries.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of strawberry wheat beers that have been given to me. I've never made one, but I've drank a number of them, and generally they can just be kind of tart because strawberry is so hard to keep the flavor of the strawberry. You guys kept the flavor of the strawberry in this, and that's just amazing to me. The mouthfeel is great. I think what I'm really struck with in the last 2 beers, which are basically the same beer, right, is the amount of mouthfeel that's not gloppy. Sometimes even in really great, famous wheat beers, I kind of drink them and I feel like they're chunky, or it's a weirdness in my mouth that I'm not crazy about. These finish so nice and light, and there's still that great body that's not about the hops at all, as it shouldn't be. Just a terrific beer. I'm super impressed.
Oh. I think it's my favorite so far. Well, it's close between that and the Saison. The Saison was wonderful. Everything's been good so far, but you captured the strawberries. And I get a little teeny bit of the banana too, so it's kind of like a little fruit salad, going on there. But to me, the mouthfeel of this is less than the previous. So it's like, I don't know whether it was mixing in the strawberries probably had an impact on that.
The increased acidity probably helps with that. So I agree. Strawberries are a very delicate fruit to brew with. It's hard to keep that flavor around. It just kind of falls out so quickly. But I think that this beer is a really good example of the staying power of Brettanomyces. Brettanomyces just lives for so long, and consequently scavenges oxygen for so long that it can really keep flavors alive and fresh well past the time frame that just a pure Saccharomyces culture would. Saccharomyces just dies pretty quickly and does not stay around and does not continue to develop and transform a beer like Brettanomyces does. And
how old is this beer?
It's a good question. It looks like it was bottled in July.
Oh, okay.
I like to a phrase that I've grown fond of saying is Brettanomyces brings flavors back from the dead. So you can have a flavor that might fall off, and I notice this most often with adjuncts such as strawberries. And the next beer is a beer that uses honeysuckle, and we notice again and again right after bottling, like a lot of delicate adjunct flavors will just fall off right away. Mm-hmm. But you give it a few weeks, a couple months, and those flavors actually come back in stronger force than they ever were to begin with. And I think that just has a lot to do with the mystical qualities of Brettanomyces.
Boy.
Yeah, I notice the same thing, not for the same reason, but I notice the same thing when we do meads. that when you bottle the mead, initially it can have just a tremendous giant fruit flavor, and then you try a bottle a couple 3 months later, it's like, nah, where'd it go? But then you let it sit for a year, and it's all back, and it's just magic. So, and as an aside, I've just had this crazy thought of putting a big scoop of vanilla ice cream in that.
That sounds delicious. But Chase's comment about the strawberry shortcake thing, I think that was dead on. Grant, could I borrow a new cup? I want a new cup for the honeysuckle. I'm really excited about that. Growing up in Central Arkansas and spending summers, picking honeysuckle blooms off of the vine and pulling the little stopper out the bottom, and you get that little drop of honey.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this. Yes, I'm all set up.
Are you all on Twitter?
I'm all on Twitter at Basic Brewing. I'm only going to talk 120 or 140 characters on this. And these, of course, these plastic. We're using plastic cups, so that probably increases the foaming. This
is a very highly carbonated beer. Anyways,
it'll grow as you talk about it. How did this come about?
So this beer is actually by far the most kind of involved, dynamic beer by design that we've made so far. It was conceived as a collaboration between us and a couple home brewers in Little Rock that brew under the moniker Void Cellars. And so, the design of the beer was very much a back and forth kind of conversation between all of us. But it's a honey beer. It's a bière de miel, you might say, but it's also a what's known as a bière de coupage, which is a blend of fresh beer and old beer. So this beer, half of the beer in this bottle of the blend was we took Day Drinker wort, our Belgian blonde wort from the brewery, just the wort, not the beer, so it hadn't been fermented yet. And we fermented it with a wild Saccharomyces isolate that I cultured way back in the day, in 2014, I think it was, from Dunbar Garden in Little Rock. So fermented that wort, which is just a pure wild Saccharomyces culture. After fermentation was done, we blended that with an equal volume of barrel-aged Saison, pretty much what number one, basically a barrel of the same stuff that went to make our Saison number one release. And then after blending, we added honey for a secondary re-fermentation. We added locally foraged honeysuckles, just like a bucket full, very much not quantitative, just as much as we could get, really. Aged it on the honeysuckles for half a week, 5 days, something like that. And then bottled, and we used honey as the bottle conditioning sugar. So it was bottle conditioned with honey. So just really trying to drive forward a honey character in this beer. And to largely repeat what I said earlier, upon bottling, the honey character was faint at most. But as this beer gets older, that honey character is definitely coming back more. It's not even just gotten more and leveled off. It is continuing to increase with time, which is pretty crazy.
This is even more complex.
This is just delicious. This is the first one that I taste kind of a pepper, a black pepper or a grain of paradise kind of thing in the back of the throat. I know there's none in there, but it's got a astringency that I've kind of expected in the others but didn't taste. This one has it, but what I'm really struck with as I drink this, and it warms just a little bit, is the honey notes. Honey just really pops through. It's absolutely delicious.
The honey comes through very well, and it's very light. It's delicate.
Yeah. It's
got very delicate flavors. I would say, having sucked on honeysuckle before, that you can definitely taste that flavor coming through, and it's not not overpowering in any way. It's incredibly balanced for what you did to it and the amount of work that went into it. It's very, very balanced.
But it's got a when you think of honey, you think of the sticky sweet. This is the mouthfeel of the beer is not that at all. It's clean, very clean finish. I get a malt character as well. In addition to the honey character, there is a really nice, almost bready, a very lightly bready malt character as well. And what I like about these is that each one of them has been a little bit funky, but it's in balance. It's not like hitting you over the head with here's something here, putting your face in the barnyard.
Right.
It's very drinkable, and well balanced, and kind of light and just wonderful.
I imagine I want to echo everything you just said. This beer, and I don't know why I've been thinking about the Lord of the Rings all day, but I swear, this is the beer that they would drink like at the Prancing Pony, in like the 3rd chapter, because it's just like a Hobbit beer. It's just so freaking good. It's the honey and the. That's it. That's all I got to say.
They come in pints.
Yeah.
I'm getting one.
Hobbit beer. That is the most unique description of any beer I've ever made. I don't know how other brewers might take that assessment, but I'm definitely gonna take it as a compliment.
I meant it as a huge compliment. I mean, it's like
from a Tolkien fanatic, that's high praise.
Yeah.
We won't ask to look at Grant's feet.
Proud foot.
I'm an elf, if anything.
All right, we've got one more, and I feel privileged because, and I'm gonna get another new cup for that.
You've only got 94 left.
Yeah, exactly. We have to.
Yeah, I'm glad we had, what is it, 4 people here, because otherwise I think it might have been a little bit of a struggle to get through all this beer in a timely manner.
Well, we're managing well here. So here's my fresh cup. So I feel privileged because, and I got to thank you before, I'm sure I will, but I want to thank you for coming up and sharing these with us. I feel, this is often. I was going to say every now and then, but often I feel really happy to have this job because we get to do things that other people don't get to do. So this beer is so new it doesn't even have a label on it.
A wooden label.
It has an F on the bottle cap for Fooder.
Oh, for Fooder. Oh, F is for Fruiter, the F word. We know what fooders are, but tell our listeners who may not know what's a fooder.
Fooder is it's an oak tank. So it's a barrel. It's definitely a barrel, but it's much larger than the typical 59-gallon wine barrel that people are accustomed to seeing stacked in wineries and breweries, wherever they might be visiting. This fooder that we have is a 30-barrel volume, so it's slightly less than 1,000 gallons, so quite a bit bigger than a 59-gallon barrel, which constitutes the rest of our stock. We have one 30-barrel fooder which we picked up this summer from Fooder Crafters of America in right outside of St. Louis, Missouri. It's the only fooder manufacturer in the nation, as far as I'm aware. The name would suggest that's the case. Excuse me.
And this is the only fooder in Arkansas that you guys have.
Yeah, it is. I'm really excited for the fooder and the beer that comes out of it, and for this release specifically because it is, very much a piece of history. These other beers, they're historical. They probably won't be recreated as they are ever again, but they were largely made with cultured, quote unquote wild yeast. That, they're beers that resemble other beers, and that's not to say that this Foeder beer doesn't resemble other beers, but it was fermented in a vessel made with Missouri white oak with a yeast strain isolated from a Little Rock garden, primary fermented, and then inoculated and aged with a mixed culture that I cultured off of 2 figs, one from my backyard and one from our head brewer Omar Castrillon's backyard. So it's and then this release right here, we took off a portion of that beer and dry hopped it with Crystal, so an American hop, not local by any means, but I think I'm proud of this beer because I think it is a great representation of a saison, but with a really American spirit. It's not just using a Belgian yeast and French oak or doing things in a so traditional manner that you're just blanket copying a lot of the honestly the best beers that exist by many people's standards. But I think this is very much inspired by those beers, but still very much using what we have here in a lot of ways to brew with. And so I'm very excited. This was bottled not even 4 weeks ago. I think it's still a little young and will continue to. As our discussion has suggested, I think this beer is only going to get better. So I don't think it's really hit its prime yet, but it is tasting quite nice. I'm very happy with it, and I'm excited to see what it ages into.
I'm just out of superlatives. I hate to just sound like a broken record, but I'm just blown away by all of these beers. Everyone has been interesting and unique, and this one is maybe the most interesting and most unique. I don't know. I just don't even know what to make of this. It's just, it's familiar but different. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so impressed with the work that you guys have done to isolate the yeast strains and to take the time to pick the honeysuckle and to do those things that really, make beer something other than a factory product.
Yeah. The hops, you can really you get the hop aroma very nicely through the head, and it works in the hop flavor very well. It blends seamlessly into kind of what we've already tasted. It's very nice. It's a great beer.
Yeah, it's lovely, as Steve would say. There is a little, in addition to sort of the bright kind of, I don't have any descriptors, but there's a teeny bit of a darker note in there as well that I haven't tasted in any of the other beers, and it's not a defect. It's a flavor that's, I don't know how to describe it, but it's there. It's a kind of it's a funky thing, but
is it heavy oak possibly?
That might be it. It's kind of a darker thing.
This beer being a first fill of a brand new oak vessel, was lightly toasted, lightly steamed. So the beer, when we were tasting it, in the early days as it was developing and maturing, it was just cloyingly oaky and tannic, and we just kind of let it ride, and we knew what we were getting into with the first fill. We did not heat treat or steam the food ourselves. We just filled it up, and we just picked it up, drove it back, and filled it up with wort. And for a lot of its early age, it was just overwhelmingly oaky, and it still is, I think, prominently oaky, maybe to a fault. But even with just 3 weeks in the barrel, a lot of that oakiness and tannic quality is fallen out. And it's actually shifting from a kind of a profile that is, borderline offensive to actually kind of like adding body and a sense of fluffiness to the beer. And I think more than any other flavor, that's what I was referring to earlier as what might still be young about the beer. And I think, with a few weeks, few months of time, I think that dark flavor, as you described it, will continue to fall out and really kind of round out the beer and not be so heavy in that oakiness.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to ding it. I was just trying to identify something, and I think maybe a tannic thing or an oak thing. I think
exactly what it is. I think you hit it right on the nail.
The thing that I'm noticing now, bouncing off what Chase said, was that the bright hop / oak, kind of green oak flavor or nose that when you smell the beer, it's just. At first, I thought, "Oh, that's just hops. And it's so bright, the hop." But then I decided that there was some oak, that kind of green oak, and the brightness of the hops combined to add up to more than the sum of them, and that's really nice. That's really nice in this beer.
And the oak, I know you said you might think it might be oaky to a fault, but I wouldn't say that. I think it's really nice and it's not out of balance. So I'll be interested to try it again later when you think it's really aged out. I can't wait to see what it'll be.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad at this time either. But I think Steve used I mean, it's a very common word. It's not like he made it up. But green oak is, I think, properly describes that raw wood flavor, and it's not out of balance at all. I don't think. But I think with time the flavor will transition from kind of a raw wood flavor to like a mature wood flavor, whatever that means. Just kind of round it out a little bit, so it's a little more smooth and soft instead of kind of in your face.
And the foeder, are you like the foeders? We've seen the foeders at New Belgium. They're you could put your shop inside one of them. They're big, but they have different. They let the bugs go in each of the foeders and they blend them in. So are you thinking of funkifying the foeder and kind of, creating kind of its own little micro environment in there?
Yeah, I said earlier, we've already done that. So, it was primary from the base culture was primary fermented with that wild Saccharomyces isolate, but then we inoculated it with that wild mixed culture from those figs. So, who knows what's on there. I mean, it'll have everything that makes and survives in wild, funky beer. It surely has lactobacillus and pediococcus and all sorts of Brettanomyces on it. So, I mean, this is a mixed culture beer right here, right now, and as clean as it might taste, it's only because it's fresh and young. As it continues to develop, those mixed culture critters will definitely start to express themselves. And the dry hopping definitely served to kind of, hops, they taste delicious, but they're also antimicrobial. So they've definitely done a bit of knocking down those wild cultures for the time being. But surely with age, they will express themselves more and more. And I know that, hypothetically that should be the case, but the foeder as it is now, it's continuing to develop the beer that's in there. We didn't, we number 6, I guess it is just a portion of it's just a pool from that foeder. So we didn't drain the whole 30 barrels. We took off 7 barrels, I think it was, and dry hopped it and packaged and then filled it back up. But
so you've got kind of a Solera project going.
It's exactly what it is. I think that word kind of means different things to different people, but that's how we understand it. But yeah, no, the base beer in the foeder is definitely starting to get tart and funky for sure. More so than you might expect from this beer, but I think that's largely just because the hops serve to kind of slow down that funkification, if you will. Wow,
I'm blown away. Every time we sign up to talk to somebody and sample their beers, it's a crapshoot, and so far we've been lucky, every time, but I can't express my thanks enough, Grant, for you coming up and bringing these wonderful beers and talking to us. And I need to come down to Little Rock and visit the area down there and see what's going on down there, because like Northwest Arkansas, Little Rock has got its own, thriving craft beer scene. So we're lucky to, we're lucky to have the normal beers from Lost 40 up here, and it would be wonderful to start seeing some of these beers up here too. So slight lobbying on on the part of Northwest Arkansas good beer lovers. But again, this has been wonderful, and I appreciate your time and your energy and your effort and your skill. So thanks, Grant. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Chase. There are worse jobs, right, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, it's better than a hot stick in the eye.
That's later. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks again to Grant, Steve, and Chase. Man, those were very tasty beers. And Steve and I sampled a homebrew saison that Grant gave us during that recording session. We sampled that during our Party Guile, our Party Guile brewing session on Monday, and it was wonderful. Apparently, I think that beer was also brewed with wild captured yeast. I was really happy to have Chase join us. I think he knows his stuff and is well on the way to becoming an excellent brewer. Hey, don't forget about the free gift that you can get for signing up for the American Homebrewers Association and the gift certificate bundles from highdgravitybrew.com that we mentioned at the beginning of the show. We meaning me. If you have brewing questions, don't forget your brewing disaster story too. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, disaster stories, or just want to say hi, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. Get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with any DVD combo, and you can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can find our logbooks where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Check all that out at basicbrewingshop.com. And don't forget you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. So until next time, until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.